All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we react to Warren Sharp's very sharp criticism of 49ers general manager John Lynch. Coming up next. First, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. The best barbecue in all of Northern California is Pig and a Pickle. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out. So get there early. Get some brisket chili. Tell them Krug sent you. Also, they'll be opening in Petaluma later on this year. And the Krug Show is presented by Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. Prize Picks is super simple. You just pick more or less on player stats or game outcomes and build your lineup. It's available in most states, including California. If you haven't checked it out yet, use code HMA. And when you play $5, you'll get $50 in lineups instantly. All right, let's talk about the story of the weekend. It was NFL draft weekend, and the 49ers made selections over all 3 days of the draft. And, you know, grading the thing the next day is kind of a futile exercise. But undoubtedly, the story coming out of the draft is not the draft, but the fact that the Niners reached for a couple picks, taking guys earlier than the consensus opinion had them going in the draft. And that led to the post presser where Grant Cohn asked John Lynch this question, and it starts here.
John, your draft board seems to deviate quite a bit from the consensus. Why are you confident with that, given your track record drafting the last few years? It seems like it leads to you making reaches.
Well, I appreciate that you think that. Depends whose consensus. We got consensus in this building. That's the that's the consensus I care about.
Kyle then went on and talked about how he liked the draft, and that exchange was awkward, but that's pretty much where it ended until Warren Sharp picked up on it and kind of glommed onto it and wrote an entire article, somewhat scathing, eviscerating John Lynch's drafting record. And Warren Sharp tweeted out, we'll share the screen on this so you guys can see this as well. Warren Sharp tweeted out this, saying, I evaluated the last 4 years of John Lynch drafts. His performance in 2023, 31st out of 32 teams. 2024, 28th out of 32 teams. 2025, 31st out of 32 teams. And then this year, he has the Niners dead last 32nd out of all 32 teams after the draft. Lynch claimed he knows better than everyone else. The data shows he doesn't. I went through every single reach he made. It's gross. Wow. Now, that was a shot across the bow. I mean, that is not something. I mean, I was shocked. That Warren Sharp would do that. Write a whole breakdown. The 49ers have been a pretty good team under Lynch and Shanahan. They've been to 2 Super Bowls. I would say if you said who are the most successful teams in pro football in the last decade, because they've been in charge of the Niners for the last decade, the Niners would be on the list. I don't know. They wouldn't be first on the list, but they would be on the list. So, I mean, what is the bottom line? Is the bottom line what you do in the standings? Is the bottom line winning Super Bowls? If that's the bottom line, they haven't gotten it done. They haven't won the Super Bowl. But what is the bottom line? And then Warren Sharp, let's go through his article here, because he then attaches a very lengthy article, and it's entitled John Lynch's Draft Record, the 49ers Costly Pattern. Okay. And he says, I normally do not do this, but I've got a vent. I don't know what John Lynch is doing. For the last several years, I've looked at industry big boards and compared the wisdom of crowds ranking of draft prospects with what each team actually does. And I've invented this metric called draft capital over expectation, DCOE, DCOE, and it helps identify reaches or steals. And he believes that the Niners' track record on this ratio of reaches versus steals puts them dead last this year, second to last year, 28th in the league in 2024, and second worst in the league in 2023. So this isn't about this draft or some reach in the midst of this draft. He says this has been going on for several years. This is Warren Sharp. Warren Sharp. The 49ers are the worst in the NFL at drafting. That's Warren Sharp saying that. The Niners are the worst team in the NFL at drafting. Wow. Warren Sharp ain't taking those shots at anybody. That is so surprising. And he says local reporters have noticed. And then he names Grant. And he kind of rehashes that exchange between Grant and Lynch and Shanahan. But Shanahan's thing was more of a defensive Lynch, and he just kind of gave a long word salad by saying, hey, look, we like our board, basically. They both basically saying we like our board. And Lynch's answer was, that depends on whose consensus. We've got consensus in this building. That's the consensus I care about. And Warren Sharp's like, the bravado in that response seems to indicate that Lynch feels that he's not reaching and is drafting well. So it brings up an interesting concept of, what constitutes a reach. If a bunch of people put together a draft guide and they just guess at a board and then teams draft differently than that board, did they reach or did they? And much of the consensus are just media people copying other media people. I mean, that's the truth. Nobody's actually watching film. Very few people are doing any kind of substantive deep dive. To be completely honest, I used to do defensive quality control in the NFL and in the Canadian Football League. And the number of hours that I invested weekly in thinking football was in the hundreds. So I'm sorry, I would not want to listen to some beat writer tell me that he spent 5 hours on his mock draft and thus he knows. So I do understand why there appears to be this kind of like arrogance, like, hey, what do you know about it? We know more than you. And there's that kind of like, hey, you know what? All I care about is the people on this board. Now, the people in this office and the people that I'm talking to, because we know more about it than you. That's basically what he's saying. I'm going to share the screen because I thought Bucky Brooks weighed in. Now, I'm kind of separating two things here, but Bucky Brooks tweeted this out today. And this wasn't necessarily in regards to Lynch or this thing with Cohn. This is more just he knows there's a lot of people questioning a lot of draft picks today. And he says, FYI, it's unfair to judge a team's draft class based on consensus boards without a thorough understanding of the team's plans for the team, the players, or the scheme. It's impossible to suggest a pick is good or bad. Teams build their draft boards based on grades that project how a player will perform or contribute within their system. The consensus boards and media scouting reports lack that context. Without a clear understanding of the why behind each pick, critics are missing some key tidbits that are critical to the full assessment. In the NFL, it takes 2 or 3 years to determine whether players can play or not. That's why we should reserve judgment until we see how the players perform and how teams utilize their personnel. That's not fun, but none of us are privy to the 32 draft boards or the schematic or personnel discussions prior to the draft. We can debate who was selected and where they were selected, but until we understand the why and see how it plays out between the lines, we're still playing the guessing game. I'll go even further to say, I mean, if we're all doing it, call the NFL draft a job interview. If we're all doing a job interview, do we really believe that us, the media and the fans and the onlookers are doing is the kind of deep dive that these guys are? I mean, I at least look at everybody's resume, but I'll freely admit that I'm not meeting any of them. And the Niner personnel department and every other personnel department in the league, they're meeting these guys. So that right there, it's like, who are you going to, if I said, hey, I got 2 people, you're going to hire this guy, you get 2 people you can talk to. This guy over here read his resume and this guy over here interviewed him. Who do you want to talk to before you hire him? I want to talk to the guy that interviewed him. You looked him in the eye. You shook his hand. You had a vibe. You had a feeling. What was he like? Was he impatient? Was he angry? Was he happy? What was his disposition? Not that it tells you how he's going to play football, but it's a major advantage to meet the guys over not. So, I mean, I always say these are my opinions within the context of I'm not meeting any of these guys, and the teams are meeting these guys. And I do know the difference between spending 100 hours trying to figure out if a prospect can play versus what I spend now, which is lots of hours, but more like, 20. It's like not hundreds. So I'm not saying that people can't judge. People can judge. Believe me, I'm not taking Cohn to task. I think his question was totally fair, and I'm not even taking Sharp to task. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to create a little context to this whole debate. So let's get back into this thing with Warren Sharp. So he says, Lynch is, basically he's like, hey, look, Lynch has got too much bravado here. Lynch feels like he's not reaching and is drafting well. And that, hey, we only care about the opinion in the building. And I understand. And I know that comes across as arrogant. John's not being arrogant. He's just saying we've spent a lot of time on this group project and we're digging into this a lot deeper than just what Bleacher Report's board says. So sorry if our thoughts are different than the board. And it's not that, every team follows this. The bottom line is if you're going to go your own route, you got to be good. You're going to go your own route. You got to kind of prove to everybody that you're right to go your own route. Otherwise, you're probably safer going with the masses. So the Niners have drafted a lot of guys that under Lynch and Shanahan that they were impulsive about. And I think it has a lot to do with Shanahan because a lot of these guys are offensive players that they traded up for, and the track record's not really good. The biggest reach was Stribling, I guess, expected to go at 99. He was taken at 33. I saw, Brugler had a second or third round grade on him. He went in the second round. So, yeah, he went early in the second round, but Brugler thought he was going to go late second, early third. I don't think it's that big of a reach. I really don't. And then when you look at the profiles of the receivers, there were reasons to take Stribling, as far as speed and blocking and size and run after the catch and just big hands. I mean, there was a lot to like. He played really well in the college football playoff, with Trinidad Shambles against Georgia, and won a lot of people over. And a lot of people really liked Deshaun Stribling. So, I mean, was it a reach? Maybe it was a little bit unexpected. I don't think it was that significant of a reach, but many of these were, right? Round 3, Jake Moody, 2023, expected to go 275, and the Niners took him in the third freaking round. 99, bust. That's also an issue. It was a bust. Round 3, Nick Martin last year, expected to go 192. Niners took him 75. We'll see. Hasn't panned out yet. We'll see how it goes. Kalon Black, a lot of people are pointing to this one. It's ironic because this kid is awesome and people are going to love him. But expected to go 214. Some people thought he was going to be undrafted. Niners took him in the third round. I love the player. I wouldn't have taken him in the third round. It was clearly a reach. But I also think he can play. Jordan Watkins, round 4 last year, expected to go number 304, taken 138. Didn't really do anything yet. Cam Latu, 2023, expected to go 188. Niners took him 101. Bust. Yesterday, Carver Willis, expected to go 232. That's late on round 7, and the Niners took him at 127 in round 4. Reach. It's a reach. It's a reach based on the numbers. But the Niners have their own scouts, their own board. Jaden Duggar, expected to go 284, went 154. I like him. But that on paper, another one of these reaches. Upton Stout last year, expected to go 173, went 100. I'd say that's a hit. Okay. Renardo Green, expected to go 110. He taken 64. I think he's played pretty good football, to be honest. I would say that's a hit. But those might be the only hits. Enrique Cruz, expected to go undrafted, and the Niners took him in the 6th round. Chris Forster loved him. Marquise Siegel, assistant coach, fell in love with him. Marquise Siegel, last year, expected to go to number 234. He went 160, round 5. Supposed to go almost undrafted, late 7th round. He went in the 5th round. Alfred Collins, last year, expected to go in 61. He went 43. I don't even think that's a reach. Robert Beal, 2023, expected to go 228. Niners took him in round 5, 173. Bust. Jared Kingston, expected to go 297, 2024 draft. Niners took him 215. Bust. Isaac Garendo, 2024 draft, expected to be picked around 164. Niners took him 129. Bust to this point. Luter, who I really like, expected to go 183, went 155 to this point. I don't know. Question mark. Braden Willis, expected to go 276, taken 247. It's a 7th round pick, but yeah, bust. Romello Height, expected to go 78, taken 70. We'll find out. Ephesians Pryzok, expected to go 141, taken 139. I don't think of that as a reach. 2 picks. Come on, that's not a reach. Jacob Cowing, 2024, 4th round, expected to go 137, taken at 135. Just hasn't worked out. Curtis Rourke, last year, taken in the 7th round, expected to go 230, went 227, whatever. But according to Warren Sharp, the 49ers have clearly the worst team in the NFL at drafting. This DCOE formula that he has, this draft formula that basically says draft capital over expectation. Trying to discern what's a reach, what's a steal, are you getting value, or are you not? And he asked the question, how many of Lynch's reaches have paid off? And take this year out of it because it's just not enough time. They just were drafted. Nobody's done anything. So of the 15 non-2026 draft picks, he goes through one by one. And, I did the same thing. I went through, and who's on this list? It's Jake Moody. It's Nick Martin. Who else? It's Jordan Watkins. It's Cam Latu. It's Upton Stout. It's Renardo Green. It's Marquis Siegel. It's Alfred Collins. It's Robert Beal. Jarrett Kingston. Isaac Garendo. Darrell Luter. Braden Willis. Jacob Cowing. And Curtis Rourke. Okay, so those are the guys on the list. Of those guys on the list, okay, there's 15 of them. 15 guys where Lynch reached. 5 of them I'd consider busts. 8 of them I would say are still question marks. And 2 of them are hits, with the hits being Upton Stout and Renardo Green. That's not a great track record right there. All right, let's jump into our Prize Picks lineup for today. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app, and the reason I like it, it's simple. You're just picking more or less on player stats or even game outcomes, building your lineup, and you're in. No complicated stuff, just what you think is going to happen in the game. Use code HMA, play $5, get $50 in lineups instantly. Link is in the description. All right, let's give out our lineup. We're going Joe Burrow, under 3,874.5 passing yards. Derrick Henry, under 1,274.5 rushing yards. We think injuries are coming. Matthew Stafford, less than 30.5 passing touchdowns. I think they're going to run the ball more. And Sam Darnold, less than 3,674.5 passing yards. Thanks to Prize Picks for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. If you're going to reach for a guy, you got to have conviction. If you're going to have conviction, you got to hit. If your conviction leads to misses, we should stop listening to your convictions. And I think the problem is that the convictions on a lot of these offensive players that have missed early in the regime, Jalen Hurd, Dante Pettis, and C.J. Beathard, or Kyle Shanahan is the bottom line. Kyle Shanahan's impulsive. And I think Kyle Shanahan, the drafter, is not necessarily helping out Kyle Shanahan, the head coach. I don't have this as fact. I'm just suspecting this, but this is what I suspect is going on. So as far as the busts, you might want to say, well, let me hear for myself. Who are the busts? Who are the question marks? Who are the hits? Okay, this is what I got. I got Jake Moody as a bust. How could he not be a bust? Just a second kicker selected in the top 100 in the last 15 years, and he's gone. He's not even with the team that he went to after he went to the Niners. So he's a bust. Nick Martin had 15 total snaps last year. I'm not calling him a bust. I'd say he's a question mark. He's a question mark. Jordan Watkins, he had 2 catches last year for 26 yards in 4 games. Some people would say he's a bust. I'm not going to. I'm going to say he's a question mark. Cam Latu never did squat. Took him 87 spots before he was projected. Couldn't play dead. Couldn't handle the I think the playbook, and bust. Cut him eventually. Bust. Cam Latu bust. Upton Stout, that's a hit. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to say Renardo Green's a hit. Marquis Siegel, I'm going to say is a question mark. Alfred Collins, I'm going to say is a question mark. These guys got to play a little bit more. Robert Beal, he's a bust. 5th round pick. Expected to go 228. You took him 173. You can't play dead. Looks good in the uni. Good special teamer. But for a 5th-round pick, I think you wanted more. Jarrett Kingston, I have him as a bust. Garendo, I could easily put as a bust. 4th-round pick. He's basically not trusted. He's struggling with ball security, pass blocking. Last year, he had 0 carries and 0 receptions. I mean, that sounds like a bust to me. But I'll put question mark because he's very big and athletic and talented. I think there's a lot of us that have hope that Garendo can get it going. I mean, there are times when I'm looking at the practice field and I'm like, this is the most athletic player on the field as far as size and speed. So, but right now he's a question mark. Darrell Luter, I like him, but he's pretty much a special teamer. He's a question mark. Braden Willis, I'm calling him a bust. Now, it's not a disaster. He's a 7th-round pick, but bust. He's not doing anything. Jacob Cowing, I'll throw him as a question mark. Some people would say he's a bust. He hasn't done anything. He's been hurt all the time, but he's got 4 catches. He had 4 catches in 2024. He missed last year with a hamstring injury. He hasn't been able to get on the field. The hamstring hasn't been able to get healthy, but I'm going to put a question mark. And Curtis Rourke, I'm going to put a question mark. So you got 15 players drafted between 23 and 25 that were graded as reaches on the consensus big board. And those were the numbers. Was Lynch smarter than the consensus? No, he was not. He only had a couple hits there. So going your own way works if it works, right? If it doesn't work, going your own way is not the way to go. It's really as simple as that. It's not that complicated. There's a great quote in this article. He says, good process isn't isolating yourself and assuming you know everything, surrounding yourself with yes men and drafting whoever you want, however you want. It hasn't paid off for the 49ers, and this isn't opinion, it's fact. And once again, he reviews Lynch's, ranking in this DCOE metric that he came up with, and he's got him no higher than 28th in the last 4 years. It's only 32 teams in the league. So a lot of reaches. The question is why, and then what do you do about it? And then he goes on to say it's hard to reconcile why the 49ers are so confident in their drafting when the results are not good. And it's a great question. It's a great question. Why do they want to go their own way? Why are they going so independent of the norm if the track record isn't there? So, it's an interesting thing. I think you've got a lot of different things going on here. I think you've got different people doing different things at different parts. The Niners have been very, very good on day 3 of the draft. The Niners have been excellent after the draft. Are the same people that are picking the 1st and 2nd and 3rd round picks making the picks on day 3? Are they making the free agent signings after the draft? How can a front office that can identify Azeez Al-Shaair as an undrafted player and Brock Purdy as a franchise quarterback, as the Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft, and then would trade up for C.J. Beathard in the 3rd round, thinking he's an NFL quarterback, and would draft Dante Pettis, who's a no-tool receiver, and would take Joe Williams, who couldn't play dead, early in the draft. Who's the same people that are finding Azeez and Purdy are also taking Joe Williams and Trey Sermon? Or are they different people making these picks? I think that's the question that has to be asked. So, yeah, I think it's a great article by Warren Sharp, and he really hits it right on the head. It's hard to reconcile why the 49ers are so confident in drafting in opposition to the consensus, given their track record. So it's interesting. Maybe they do a lot of self-analysis. Tariq Ahmad said as much. Are they doing the self-analysis and then ignoring what the analysis says? And then here's the other question. The Niners, what is the bottom line? They're winning games. They're one of the winningest teams in football. They've gone to a couple Super Bowls. It's not like if you said to me, who are the 5 most successful teams in the NFL in the last decade? I don't know who's going to be on the list, but the Niners are on it. Kansas City, Philly. Who else are you going to throw in there? Probably the Niners. Isn't that kind of the bottom line? The franchise value's gone up exponentially over this period of time. Is that the bottom line? Is it about making money? Is it about going to Super Bowls? Is it about winning Super Bowls? Is it about drafting efficiency? I mean, what is the bottom line here? Do you ruffle Kyle Shanahan's feathers and tell him, hey, it's this way or the highway? What if he takes the highway? You're going to chase off one of the best coaches in football because you're not drafting efficiently enough? There's lots of issues here. There's lots of questions here. I'm bringing up even more issues as we go. But, Warren Sharp writes an interesting article, and he says the fact that the Niners win games doesn't mean they're doing it right. And he goes on to say, I can only imagine what Kyle Shanahan could do with a proper general manager drafting these players. Well, that takes the blame off of Kyle altogether. But who knows? Maybe it's Kyle telling him who to pick. We don't know. We don't know. And then, Warren says, we don't know what this team could be if they drafted better. Yeah, think about it. And then he goes on to say, hey, look, Lynch can claim he knows better, but the data shows he doesn't. Wow. All right, a couple quick thoughts. Are the 49ers winning because of or in spite of how they draft? I would say they're winning in spite of how they draft. I know they've had some good rosters from time to time, but I would say they're winning in spite of how they draft. Is not as much as because of how they draft. It also kind of makes you wonder, would the Niners be the NFL's top dynasty if they just drafted better? Why have the 49ers why have they been successful under Lynch and Shanahan? I would say they've been successful for three main reasons. Kyle Shanahan is a top-tier coach, and he has a top-tier coaching staff. That's number one. Number two is John Lynch has made some very, very good trades. Trent Williams, one-sided deal. Christian McCaffrey was a phenomenal deal. John Lynch acquired a number of different guys at the trade deadline in different years to keep the team afloat or to help the team go further. Some really nice smaller deals, but those two trades right there brought in the best left tackle in football and one of the best offensive weapons in the game. Two really great trades. And then number three is some really excellent day three picks. Fred Warner on day three, George Kittle on day three, Demo Lenore on day three, Talanoa Hufanga on day three, Jawan Jennings on day three, DJ Jones on day three, Brock Purdy on day three. See where I'm going? And also some really good undrafted free agents, Azeez Al-Shaair, Kevin Givens, Raheem Mostert, and others, Jeff Wilson. They found some guys. So Elijah Mitchell, day three. So, where do you go from here? What do you do? What's the solution? John and Kyle are kind of a team, and John's done too good of a job to fire him. This idea that you would fire John Lynch, no. Way too good of a job. They've been too good. They've made too much money. They've had too much success. But the inefficiency in the drafting is also real. And it's not, and Grant's question was not out of left field. It may have been received as such, but it's something that probably a question that really needed to be asked. And good for Grant for asking it. But the bigger question is, what do you do about it? And what I would suggest, hey, Krug, what do you think? That's the part of the video that we're at right now, which would be a great time to tell you that the Krug Show is brought to you by Habbas Law. They will fight to make it right. Visit HabbasLaw.com on the web. Omar Habbas, Tarek Habbas, and the entire Habbas Law team. When everything's on the line, choose the team that understands that. Habbas Law. They will fight to make it right. HabbasLaw.com on the web. All right. I just said that because I wanted extra time. I need to buy myself some extra time. No. Okay, this is my plan, and this is what I think they ought to do. Look at the teams that draft really well. Eric DeCosta. Was Eric DeCosta a Hall of Fame football player? Not that I know of. Is Howie Roseman a Hall of Fame football player? No. Is Elliot Wolf, Ron Wolf's kid, who's like 5'5", is he an awesome, athlete? No. So maybe it's not really the Hall of Famer player that we need. Maybe it's just somebody who's a really great drafter. I mean, who's doing it really well? John Schneider's doing it well in Seattle. Jason Licht is doing it very well in Tampa. Eric DeCosta has done a very nice job in Baltimore. Howie Roseman's doing a really nice job in Philadelphia. Brad Holmes, I think, is maybe the hottest GM in the game right now. Look at the draft he just had in Detroit. The Raiders are going to turn it around because of John Spytek. Go get a really sharp head of college scouting in a great organization. There are people in this business who know who the genius personnel guys are. Go find a genius personnel guy. Go get a genius personnel guy and give him control. Let Kyle Shanahan do what Kyle Shanahan's great at. Coach the team. He's the best offensive play caller in the game. He's the best sequencer of offensive plays in the game. He's a ruthless play caller, the best at doing it in the game, right next to Andy Reid. Him and Andy Reid are right there neck and neck. That's what Kyle Shanahan's really, really good at. Let him free him up to, talk to him endlessly. Get the traits that he wants. Find out who he wants. Flesh out the whole thing. Take the decision-making power and put it in the hands of a sharp, young, awesome director of college scouting who knows the college prospects like the back of his hand, and start drafting better. Tell John to go upstairs and be the president of the organization. The guy is an awesome guy. He's incredibly credible. Think about it this way. If John Lynch had been an incredible general manager, what are the odds of that? I don't think it's a throwaway job. It's a huge job. It's a massive job. So you're telling me John Lynch, who was a great baseball player and a great Hall of Fame safety, also has a skill set that he's a great broadcaster, and he also has a skill set where he can be as good a drafter and general manager as the best people in the world who do this after just a couple of years of doing it? Come on, it was always an unrealistic expectation. It's not about intellect. These jobs, this is what people are born to do. Howie Roseman couldn't play strong safety in the NFL. Elliot Wolf ain't knocking anybody out as they come across the line of scrimmage. Not everybody has every skill set. How many people? This game is huge right now. How many Bill Walshes are there? How many Jimmy Johnsons are there? How many Mike Holmgrens are there? How many guys who can do it all? They're huge jobs. And then the skill sets are unique. The best drafters are not usually, Hall of Fame players who are great spokesmen for the team. They're guys who are pasty, sitting in the room, rolling film back and forth. They're not balanced and going to make appearances and speaking appearances. They're grunts. They're scouts. They're in the dark. They're plotting. I would just say, let's all do what we're best at. John, you're the face of the franchise. You're one of the most credible. You're one of the best things that ever happened to the San Francisco 49ers is John Lynch. We all know it. He's credible in the league. The Niners under Jed didn't have that level of credibility. They do now. Do that. That's a huge job. Let's make tons of money. Let's be the face of the franchise across the league. But these jobs are huge. John Lynch is helping the Niners win games throughout the year. He's on the sideline of every NFL game. That means he's not in Athens. That means he's not in Gainesville. That means he's not in Columbus. That means he's not in Ann Arbor. I want my nerdy little director of college scouting to be in Ann Arbor, not on the sidelines of Niners Rams. So I just think that let's all do what we're best at. How about that? Kyle, you're the best. I'd even give Kyle a raise and an extension. Let's just try something new here. John, let's be the president. Kyle, let's be the coach. And let's find Elliott Wolf. Let's go find Jason Licht. Let's go find somebody who's really great at that. And let's go win Super Bowls. It's been 30 years. Can't keep doing the same thing. There's been a lot of success. The idea that people would fire this regime is absolutely effing crazy. You're not firing these guys. You'd be the laughingstock of football if you fired these guys. Firing these guys is not an option. You got as good a head coach as there is. You got as good a team president as there is. Go find the Elliott Wolf, Jason Licht, nerdy personnel guy, and let's have a parade. All right. Thanks for listening to the Krug Show. Good stuff from Grant. Great theater. Unbelievable talking point. Warren Sharp coming off the top rope with a haymaker on John Lynch. Woo! Tell me what you think in the comments below. That's how I feel about it. I want to hear from you. Thanks for tuning into the Krug Show. The links are in the description for all the sponsors. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Peace.